Welcome in Deseret News Rewind Classics. Dusty Litster and Dane Stewart, as always, represented by Heidemann and Associates and brought to you by the Utah Army National Guard.
As always, Dusty, and the Utah Army National Guard, boy, if you're trying to figure out what that next step in your life is, look, COVID-19 has thrown a wrench in all of our lives. If you're trying to figure out how to better your situation, what your next step is going to be, maybe you want to make a bit of a pivot, check out the Utah Army National Guard. You can earn up to $20,000 in educational assistance, as well as up to $20,000 in signing bonuses available, depending on the career path chosen. Over 150 different career path options available. Check out nationalguard.com to learn more about the Utah Army National Guard.
Absolutely. And of course, we've talked about these guys for crazy to say almost a year now, and that is Heidemann and Associates. And both of us can tell you, one, I know Justin. I've known him for a long time personally. Now Dane's gone to him as well. We can speak to what all that Justin will do. Heidemann Associates. If you're a COVID frontline worker, of course, you get a free will and trust. If you are just one of our favorite fans and people who watch our videos and want to support the people who support us and allow us to bring these things to you, let them know. They're going to give you a free consultation. Go check them out at Heidemann and Associates at HeideLaw.com or UtahLaw.com. Either one will get you to where you need to go. Sorry, Justin. We'll make sure that's right. But we got a fun one. I mean, this is a game that neither one of us called. I remember going through it because I'd go through every one of them back in the day. And but it's fun to bring in our fans from West Valley City and Taylorsville, who's not West Valley. It is Taylorsville, to bring them into our classics videos.
Hey, if you know me, I love the chance to give some Region 2 coverage, right? And you know, this was one that very deserving, Dusty. And, you know, it's so amazing because Taylorsville, man, what a great job they did to build that program. Remember the middle of the, 2010s, this was a really good program. They were fighting for playoff spots. And, this was a game that was really key for them. Hunter, boy, they had a young quarterback. They had a really promising tight end. We'll talk about him in this highlight. This was two teams that were really trying to build something in a critical game out at Hunter High School.
It'll be a lot of fun. You're going to hear the golden tones of one of our good friends, Austin Wolford, who's hanging out in Vegas these days, but he does a great job. Let's go jump into this one. Deseret News Rewind Classics. Well, as you mentioned, Dane, a fun one, Taylorsville and Hunter. And when you look at these two teams coming into this game, they kind of set the stage for you a little bit. Hunter, look, you mentioned they were kind of coming back. They had a tough start to the year. They beat Layton in week 1, and then they lose to Davis, Harriman, Bingham, and Brighton. And that Brighton game was a learning experience because they played them later on in the year. We'll talk about that later. But then they won 2 straight coming in this one over Cottonwood West, coming into this game against Taylorsville. And not to give away what happened in this one, after this, Dane, they win 3 straight games after that. So this Hunter team was growing.
Yeah, they were. And Dusty, they had a really promising back. I mean, we'll talk about that, but this was a team, we talked about a young Medlinger, a promising running game. This was a team that felt like, again, they won a state championship in the 2000s. This was a really
2004
program. Yeah, a program, on the west side of the valley, but man, they were ground and pound, physical, big offensive line. And, it looked like they were starting to get back to that a little bit. And this Taylorsville team, one that had been, let's face it, their football program had struggled for a long time. And you started to see some of the things. This was before one Dane lay Tuala, but you started to see them build some foundation. And, you heard some young kids coming up through the ranks. We're going to help this Taylorsville program get back and fight for playoffs. But you're right. For me, this was at a point where both these programs were trying to kind of rebound a little bit. Hunter had some 7-win seasons. This season ended up being right around that. But, they weren't too long removed from 4-win seasons as well. So they were trying to get back to that point where they could contend for region championships.
Yeah, speaking of Taylorsville, I mean, coming into this game, Dane, they beat Kearns, beat Murray, lost to Davis, beat Olympus, beat Alta, Granger, Hillcrest, coming into this game. So a lot of people say, "Oh, what about it?" Either way, I mean, 2001, I believe, was a year they went to the state championship game that was actually played at LaBelle Eldridge Stadium that year because of stuff going on at Rice-Eccles Stadium. But since then, had not really done much on the football field. This is a baseball school. I mean, this wasn't so. To see Taylorsville come back was a lot of fun. So now let's talk about the players that we're going to talk about in this one. As you saw, name coming into this one, the one we titled is To'a Much, Taylorsville To'a Much for Hunter. And when you talk about this Taylorsville team, we have to start first with To'a Maumau.
Yeah, and I mean, this was a Taylorsville team, Justin, that had a 10-year playoff drought. And in 2013, they made the playoffs. They had won 6 games. In 2014, this year, you talked about, what had happened leading up to and after. They actually won 7 games this year. That's the most games they'd won in any single year going back to the 90s. I mean, it had been a long time since they had put 7 wins on the board. And you talked about a young man in To'a. Boy, what a start he had to this game. Really a fantastic game throughout. But this was a young man that I remember thinking was, much more of a runner. But you watch his performance in this one, you never would have guessed it. He was throwing darts out there, particularly in the first half. He was really accurate throwing the football, and he was just a bear to try to defend. And one of the main reasons why this Taylorsville team had as much success in 2014 as they did.
Well, you think of this team, and here's how balanced was. You had 5 receivers catch, or 6 receivers. Okay, I'll do this one more time. 5 receivers catch passes in this game, and all around the 30-yard mark. And so when he was going to throw the football, he spread it around. And but To'a, if the nickname's on there, if he's part of the tagline of this game, you can tell he's going to be a big part of it. When we talk about Hunter, this was a different team because of where things were. McKay Meidlinger was a young starter. They were going to ask a lot of him. They had an outstanding running back who has an outstanding night in this one. I'll let you get to his name, but I get to name the other one. And that is Noah Tongiai, young man that's been tearing it up at Oregon State. And we'll get to talk about him a little bit. Had an outstanding year that year on the hardwood too. But Dane, we'll let you take it away from the guy who really, he had the night of his life.
Well, kind of. He had himself a really impressive night this night, Dusty. I mean, he blew records, averaged over 10 yards a carry. You mentioned, obviously that's going to be a big night. Joseph TiaTia, what a night he had. We talk about that school record. Dusty, as phenomenal as a night as this was, it didn't last very long. How's that for a little tease? I got notes for you, and that's coming up here later in the Classic. Coach Vaitu'u, thank you so much for joining us. And Coach, this game, as we look back on it, man, just so many fireworks. What do you remember from this particular night for Taylorsville?
It was like a To'a Maumau battle. It was just two Titans going at it. Say, okay, hey, whichever Titan was going to have the ball last was going to win.
Well, let's get into this one first. And in the first quarter, interesting was you watched these two teams as you would expect. They're going to fill each other out. But not only that, it just couldn't quite get going. And you felt like at this moment, maybe you see a lot more defensive style of play from both these two teams.
First and goal for the Wolverines. Back to the right of McKay. McKay going to look to throw. Looking. Going to be brought down, but he got rid of the ball. It's picked off in the end zone. Going to take a knee. It will be returned out to the 20-yard line. Warriors take over. To'a gets the snap. Looking to his left. Throwing deep to his left. Got a guy. Nope, it's incomplete. There was a hit on the play. No penalty. It was ruled over or uncatchable.
So then we go to the second quarter, and that's where things start to pick up.
Wolverines, I formation again. Pitch coming to the right side. TiaTia looking for the cut, makes the cut. He's got a lot of running room down the sidelines. He's outrunning everybody. Gets to about the 20-yard line, inside the 10. Defender chasing him. He fights his way in the end zone. I do not see any flags. Touchdown, Wolverines. They take a 6-0 lead early in the second quarter.
Yeah, Dusty, we talked about Joseph TiaTia. How about this? The first big play of the night. How about a 63-yard run for Joseph TiaTia? We talked about how good of a night he was, averaging over 11 yards a carry. Well, when you reel off 63 yards in a single attempt, that's going to help that yards per carry go up. But this was the kind of night he had. I mean, just a beast on the ground, mowing guys over, physical runner, great speed. And boy, he really gutted this Taylorsville defense for the first score of the ballgame.
Well, exactly. And so at that moment, you're thinking, okay, here comes Hunter. Well, and this is what you're going to get used to. So here's the thing, is that TiaTia has that run, and this will loom large later. The extra point was no good. Yeah. And then an ensuing drive, it looks like Hunter doesn't have a chance to extend their lead. The Taylorsville defense comes up.
3rd and 10 for the Wolverines. McKay under center. Gets it, looks, play action fake. He's going to be sacked for a big loss on the play. The ball's loose, it's fumbled, and they're going to rule him down. It looked like he might have been up, but they're going to say he was down. First down coming up for the Warriors.
If you recall, Hunter went up early in this game, and they're driving, an opportunity to go up by 2 possessions. Your defense came up with a fumble. You guys actually had a couple of interceptions that day. How important was the defense for Taylorsville on this given night to get you some extra possessions, particularly early?
Yeah, well, that one was important, what you're talking about, that early one, because they would have took a 2 possession lead on us, 2-score lead on us. And I remember that was Mufi Hunt, who went to Michigan State, who went in the portal. He's now at the University of Utah. He made a big strip on that play. And then Lyric Bartley, who went to Washington State, picked that up. I mean, that was huge. Because especially, you know, if they get up 2 scores and you got TiaTia running that ball, they're not even trying to pass. They're just going to keep feeding them the ball, taking the time. And, man, so that was a big turnover.
And that sets up a nice Taylorsville drive.
3rd and 5 coming up. Here's the snap to To'a. He's going to look to his left, throw to his left, over the middle. Pass is caught to number 15. He's got the first down. That is Jacob Hillman on the catch. And now they have the ball, 3rd down and 7. To'a gets the snap, looks to his right. He's going to throw deep to his right. Got a guy, walks into the end zone. Great pass there. I'll get you a name on the reception here in a second.
It does, and we talk about To'a and his ability to just throw the football, and he has some really nice throws on this drive to respond after they generated that fumble from Meidlinger. And he's able to drill one here to Cleveland, 30 yards out. Kyle Cleveland with the reception. And because of that missed PAT, all of a sudden Taylorsville finding themselves here leading by 1.
Yeah, and whenever something like that happens, so the halftime score 7-6 in favor of Taylorsville. And then the second half, where things get fun and things get very, very interesting, is the Wolverines, we talk about a big night. They just turn to Tia. It's easy. His name is easier than it looks. TiaTia doesn't have to get to, but he is imposing.
Man in motion. Here's the snap. Hand off to TiaTia again. Finds a small hole. Makes it a big hole. Down the sidelines to the 40. Stays on his feet. Inside the 30. Tries to truck a defender. Can't. Brought down at about the 19-yard line. Maybe the 20-yard line. Either way, it's 1st and 10 into Taylorsville territory. Wolverines driving the ball on the legs of TiaTia. Here's the snap. Handoff again to TiaTia. Nice hole. He's going to go into the end zone. No flags. Wasan's friend TiaTia gets another touchdown. His 2nd of the ball game. 12-7 pending the extra point.
You look at this, and his name really set a pattern for this game. TiaTia, it's repetitive, right? Well, how about this? I mean, they hand the ball off to TiaTia. He has a big run, 25, 30 yards, gets him to the 20-yard line. Let's just give it right back to old number 5, 20 yards out, up the middle, touchdown. And Hunter, once again, riding the legs, the shoulders, the big body, the quick feet of their tailback, TiaTia.
Yeah, the extra point was no good once again.
So here's the snap. They're going to go for 2. Throw it up into the end zone for Togiai. It is, I think that was Togiai. It's incomplete. The score will remain 12-7.
So Taylorsville, what do? Well, you don't have to go too far to get the ball in the hands of your best player. Just snap him the football, and then To'a comes to life.
So 12-7. To'a looks to his right, rolls to his right. He's going to take it himself. Just makes a great move. Great cut. Cuts back to the right. Jukes out a defender. Goes up to about the 47-yard line. It'll be the 48-yard line. Big game for To'a. 1st and 10 coming up for Taylorsville. In Wolverine territory at the 45. Trips to the left. Toa''s going to pump fake, drive up the gut, go over his own defender, breaks off a tackle, gets down to about the 31-yard line. 1st and 10 coming for Taylorsville. 1st and goal for Taylorsville at the 3-yard line of the Wolverines. Here's the snap. To'a running to his left side. He's going to find a little hole. Goes into the end zone. Touchdown, Taylorsville. It is now 13-12, pending the extra point with 6:15 left in the 3rd.
Yeah, we talk about the TiaTia. Well, it's To'a Maumau. And so you talk about stick with what works, right? Repetitiveness. And this was where we talk about, To'a and his athletic ability. And he really demonstrates that. I mean, you look at this athletic run up the middle. Oh, my goodness, has another one. And then he's able to cap that off here with a touchdown run. And then they go for 2 to try to get the score even in scoring, go up by a field goal. They convert it.
So after in offsides on the defense, they're going to go for two. Toa's going to keep it, go right up the gut into the end zone. 2-point conversion is good. They're going to take a 3-point lead now, 15-12, 6:15 left in the third.
And you have that missed PAT. You have a 2-point conversion that Hunter fails. 1 2-point conversion. All of a sudden, you got a 3-point separation game where both teams have scored 2 touchdowns, and that creates this separation that would play out over the rest of the ballgame.
Well, it's always one of those things when you see those plays being made, it's like, yeah, this game's going to change a little bit. It's going to hinge on the one that can do the little things, and the extra points are a big thing. But it's nice if you're Hunter, when you come back, if you got a guy that could play 2 Division I sports. And Noah Tongiai, he became one of our absolute favorites.
Nothing. It's 2nd down and 10. This time they're going to pass. McKay up top to Togiai. Togiai breaks the tackle. He's going down the field. He's at the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, Wolverines! A great touchdown reception from Noah Togiai. And he goes all the way. It is now 18-15 pending the extra point.
He absolutely did. He was a big target, athletic, good hands, and that's all on display here, And for Meidlinger, we talked about, he had a fumble earlier. He also had an interception earlier in this ball game. This ball, he's able to find an open Noah Togiai, and once you get to Togiai, wave goodbye. You aren't catching this big kid, and he's able to take it the rest of the way. 65-yard touchdown pass to Togiai, and the Wolverines retake the lead.
Yeah, and the kick is good on this one. And so for Taylorsville, we're still in the third quarter, and that makes the score 19-15 in favor of Hunter. And Taylorsville, I just love the consistency. They just come right back. Your quarterback's your guy, and this really just showed everything that we know from Taylorsville football with Dane Leituala. It started with To'a Maumau, and To'a gets it done through the air. He gets it done with his feet once again.
There's Hunter in the lead. Here's To'a dropping back, doing a screen play to his left side. It's caught. Got a lot of running room down the sideline. Breaks out. He's going down. Just fights through a tackle. He's down inside the 30-yard line, about the 30-yard line of the Wolverines. 1st and 10 coming up for Taylorsville. So, 2nd and goal, last play of the third quarter. Toa's going to step up, run, and he looks like he's in. He is. Touchdown. To'a runs into the end zone. I believe that's his 11th touchdown rushing touchdown on the season. And they'll pull ahead 21-19 pending the extra point.
Yeah, nice screenplay, to be able to help this up. And then at the end, it's To'a from 12 yards out on the final play of the third quarter, able to get the touchdown in. And Taylorsville able to retake the lead here 22-19. And we talked about To'a doing it all, right? Able to throw the football, run the football, and really becomes a problem for these defenses, try to figure out how to contain this Taylorsville offense.
Hey kids, if you wonder what it was like to be a kid in the 90s, you got to watch Hunter on this. We get back to, because biggest arguments I got as a kid, especially at school or playing on the playground, it was Emmitt Smith versus Barry Sanders. It was, for me, Marcus Allen versus the world, and all the running backs, Roger Craig. I mean, just so many running backs growing up. That's TiaTia. You're watching 90s football. Just turn around out of the I formation, give it to your best guy, and let him run. And TiaTia comes through once again.
4 possessions in the third quarter, 4 touchdowns. Here comes Hunter. Hand off to TiaTia, bounces off a tackle, fights his way ahead, keeps trucking. He's got a lot of running room down to the sidelines. He crosses the 50 into Taylorsville territory. Got a guy chasing him down, finally brought down at about the 16, 15-yard line of Taylorsville. 1st down and 10 coming up for the Wolverines.
Yeah, I mean, you have an opportunity where Tia with a big run, able to take that up the middle, inside the red zone. And then, you got to love, we talk about a young quarterback in Meidlinger. Look, you're trying to groom this young man for the years to come, right? You have a back who's absolutely having a big night, right? I mean, he's just dominating the defense, and you're able to utilize that to, get the defense to bite a little bit. You have Meidlinger to Tongiai once again, this time from 26 yards out, and the Wolverines making a late push here to retake the lead here in the fourth.
So after a penalty on the Wolverines, they'll take the ball back. 2nd and 20. Here we go. Throwing up top to Togiai. He's fighting. He's got the ball. Touchdown! Wolverines! No flags on the play. Great play going up to Togiai. His 2nd touchdown of the game. Wolverines take the lead 25-22 pending the extra point.
Yeah, I mean, just an absolute beautiful from Meidlinger to Tongiai from 6 yards out, putting Hunter back up 25-22. You know, it's interesting because right after all this, it's kind of nice. You know, I know it's 6 years ago, but this was all kind of new to turn around and say, hey, Mr. Quarterback, go do your thing. Now, granted, Brent Covey was doing it 40 miles down south, and he'd been doing it for a couple of years. But to watch what Toa does on this drive, Dane, it's just unreal. They're going to put the ball in our best player's hands. He's our quarterback, and he just puts the Warriors on his back.
Back on the right. Here's the snap. They're going to play action it. It's going to be a keeper by Toa. He's breaking through tackles down the sidelines. First down and 10 coming up at the 45-yard line of the Wolverines. So here we go. This is the ball game. 4th and 2. They get it here. It's over. Watch Toa on the keeper. Here's the snap. He's going to keep it himself. Runs up the guy. He's got the first down. Going into the end zone. Did he get in? Tripped up. Is he short? Is he in? Touchdown. Taylorsville. They take the lead with 44 seconds left in the ball game.
Talk about the call on that 4th and 2. I mean, this is game hanging in the balance. You got a 4th down. This is, you know, convert or go home. What do you remember from that specific call, if anything?
Oh, you know, I remember when I was talking to my brother last time we had spoke, and my brother's there, and I didn't quite remember. I remembered the play, but I didn't remember what happened. He goes, no, I know what happened. He said, we called a timeout, and then we came out and we were going to go trio left. And then you wanted to spread all the receivers out to try to stretch their defense out wide so we can run that 44 counter where we pull out backside guard and tackle. And we run that counter. And so that was the play. And I remember as soon as he told me, I remember that's what we did. We spread them out. They foul foot. The linebackers all went out. And then we ran that counter. It was just wide open. I mean, it was like Moses parted the sea. And he just, boy, that was unreal. I remember that play.
Well, and the frustrating thing is, you know, yeah, he has, you know, some more just impressive plays. But, I mean, imagine this. You've got a guy who's been able to beat you on the ground, in the air, and yet you have a lead in the 4th quarter, and by now you're around a minute left. I mean, this is late in the ball game. You've got a 4th and 2. You are this close to getting yourself out of a ball game with a big win at home over a team that, you know, this is a pivotal game at this point in the season. You've done all this work, and despite being gutted, your offense has found a way to give you a lead late. Your defense has you in a 4th down scenario, and what happens? Toa taking this one in, and man, Dusty, this one is close, huh?
Does he get in? We did this last week, talking about the double pass in the Harriman AF game, just because it's been too friendly with officials. And it's one of those ones where I don't know if I can stop it well enough to get there, Dave. But this is a close one. I love the effort from Toa, and to put him at the 1 yard line. That knee is super close.
It is. Now, look, this time I'm prepared for the conversation. Dusty isn't going to catch me off guard 2 weeks in a row. I actually think he's in. I don't think that knee touches. I think he goes down and he's able to leap over. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong.
No, I wasn't even saying it was wrong. I was saying it was close. Wasn't saying it was wrong. I was just saying it was close.
Say, what was it like being on that Taylorsville sideline? Because Maumau, boy, what a game he had on that particular night. The quarterback, obviously, you know, his ability to scramble and create running plays, but also with his arm. How special of a player was he for the Warriors in his time at Taylorsville?
Oh, man, he was a special kind of athlete. Not only can he run with his legs, he had a gun of an arm. And also, man, he was just a warrior. I mean, you saw in that game, I mean, we literally spoke to him and said, hey, you know, after TiaTia runs for that second touchdown, we're like, okay, you know what? It's going to be a long day. You're going to have to carry these guys. And you know what? He did it. He was like, don't worry, coach, I got it. I'll lead him.
Coming back here for Hunter, a chance to think, hey, we got Tongai and you got TiaTia. And it's interesting from Hunter, they start with Tongai, and look they got 3 guys around him. And then an interesting decision, which I don't kind of blame him. I kind of wonder, they're trying to go through his total stats here in just a minute. You got to try it once. You had a timeout on the board. That was an interesting decision to run the ball. I'm not going to go back and adjudicate that now. That was interesting because you got to use your best player. And but then here comes the end of the game and the sealer.
Togiai closest to us. Here's the snap. Play action. He fumbles the football. This game is over with. Taylorsville will recover. It is over with. And that's how we'll finish this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is officially what led to all of the Barry Sanders and, Emmitt Smith focus of football coming to an end, but I think it certainly points a scenario that you saw play out in the 90s of, hey, we've got a great back, but now we've got to find a way to march 80 yards and we've got 45 seconds to do it. And how do you do that on the ground when the clock doesn't stop? And I mean, you talk about a tough, a call here. I don't mind it at all. You have a young man who's been huge on the ground. The only problem is you are rolling the dice. And, even if he gets his average of 11 yards, you still find yourselves, on the minus side of the 50 and your clock is running once that ball. I mean, you're kind of in a tough spot and you just don't have enough time to do that time and time again. You talk about Medlinger and he fumbled it once earlier. This time, fumbles the snap, doesn't ever really get it cleanly. Taylorsville able to recover it. And that's the ball game, and it's one of those tough moments where a sophomore quarterback, you're placing a lot on his shoulders and not much time to do it. And he has a nice throw to Tongiai to start this thing off, but in the end comes up just short here and the Warriors get a big W.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I just keep wondering where the fake 26 blast backside George reverse was going to come out here for Hunter, but no sunshine to lead the way there. I think Tongiai could have done it.
Yeah, I don't think they had a starting quarterback who had been on the bench with injury that they could bring on in this moment.
If you know the movie, hit us up on Twitter, Deseret News Rewind. If you don't know that movie, that's with forgiveness. So the final score, but 29-26 Taylorsville. The interesting thing is where both these teams go. After this game, Taylorsville loses the two games to close the year, lose to Cottonwood by 3, get housed by West, and lose in the first round of the state tournament to Riverton. This was a high watermark of their season.
Yeah, it was. And we talk about a team that, they, hadn't made the playoffs for a long time, made it in 2013, made it again in 2014. And in my mind, I felt like this was the team that had the tools to be able to get the job done. How special was it at Taylorsville during this time? This was a program that had missed out on the playoffs for a long time, had gone to the playoffs in 2013, 2014, you go back. How special was it to be able to have success at Taylorsville, a school that really hadn't had a lot of success on the gridiron for several years prior to this span?
You know what, man? It was great. I mean, the community, it changed the whole outlook. The community was supportive. The community was happy. I mean, before we went to playoffs, it was like 16, 17 years before they even went to a playoff game or even won a playoff game. We ended up winning the next year with Dane, where it was 16 years since they won a playoff game. But, man, it was special. It was special.
Take a look at what Hunter did after this game. They beat Hillcrest, the dogfight win against Granger to win the Battle of West Valley City. And then they host a first-round playoff game against Lone Peak, who had come in playing pretty well. I think Stephen Cruz called this game for us, and they win that game 43-20 to win in the first round and then lose to Brighton. They almost make it to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Yeah. They lose to Brighton 26-21. Tony had a catch late in that game, but not enough to overcome Simi Fahoko, Sione Lund, and others. Cody Barton, who's now in the NFL, and Osa Messina. I mean, that was a talented team, and they lose 26-21 in the second round, nearly getting to Rice-Eccles Stadium.
They were 3-6, 3-6, and they come back to win a couple of games. They make the playoffs. You talked about it. They beat Lone Peak. What a win that was, and decisive win over Lone Peak. In fact, I think prior to Kearns last year, this was the last Region 2 victory in the playoffs, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Was that 2014 team for the Hunter Wolverines?
2014.
But I want to take you back even a little bit further, okay? You ready for a fun fact, Dusty?
I love fun facts.
I knew you do. So we talked about TiaTia and his night. 33 carries, 361 yards, set a school record. Wow, what a night. You want to know what's even more incredible about this? That school record? You want to know how long that school record lasted for? 7 days. Because against Hillcrest, TiaTia went off for 456 yards. For perspective, that was the state record for a single game rushing yardage until Dustin Maffo outrushed it by 11 yards in 2018. You want to know another fun fact? So TiaTia, that is now the second highest single game rushing yards in state history. The other two in the top three, we talked about Mafo from Layton Christian. Kyle Foy from Altamont is in third place. He rushed for 451 yards in a game. Both Foy and Mafo, the big games they had 450, 460. The following week, each of them were held to under 100 yards, 80 and 91. TiaTia goes for 360 1 week, 450 the next week. Got to be the absolute most yards in back-to-back weeks. Almost 1,000 almost 1,000 yards in 2 weeks for Joseph TiaTia. You talk about TiaTia and the night he had. What was it like being on the opponent's sideline and just watching him reel off 360 some odd yards?
You know what, man? Yeah, it's a nightmare. That's like one of the worst things as a coach, right? As an opposing coach, just knowing that, okay, we know he's going to get the ball, but no matter what we do, he is still gaining all yards. There's nothing we can do to stop him. So, we told our kids, hey, look, we're just going to have to take advantage of some opportunities that show up, right? We're not going to be able to stop him. And obviously, we didn't. I think he ran for like 300 something yards. But when we do get an opportunity, we have to make those opportunities count. And then, like we said, we went to the offense and went to To'a and said, hey, look, man, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to lead our guys. We're going to win this on offense. And hopefully our defense, they get the opportunity they need and make that play for us.
Turning point in this one.
I think that the missed PAT is one of those things where sometimes that happens, right? I'm a fan where I don't really believe in chasing points. I believe that you wait and try to, let the game kind of even itself out. I think going for 2 back in that second quarter for Hunter, they tried a little bit of a trickeration on the play. It didn't work. And it offsets the score. And then the fact that Taylorsville was able to go for 2 and get that field goal lead, all of a sudden this game becomes uneven. And to me, that's the turning point, right? Is at some point there's an insertion or a removal of confidence and an insertion of confidence. And it feels like once you get that distance of 3 points and you're alternating scores, that's where, in my mind, this game really separates, especially with the performance of TiaTia and To'a on this given night. You knew the offense were going to be able to move the football. You had that indication in the second quarter. But as soon as that separation gets created, I feel like that's the turning point. And Taylorsville came out on the positive end of that. Hunter didn't. And I think that we saw that play out over the remainder of the contest.
It's interesting. I think that's a good one too. And mine is the next drive. They're up 6-0. Speaking of Hunter, and Hunter has a big run from TiaTia. They're getting inside near the 30-yard line, and they have the forced fumble that's recovered by Taylorsville. That to me was the kind of turn. You're up 6-0. You could have went and scored, got 2 scores, and ends up being you lose by 3 points. And it's one of those ones that you sit back as a coach or player, or anybody. It's like, we had the ball, we're driving, and we have a mistake and allow them to go get their first score, which changed this game a little bit.
Yeah. And they were deep in Taylorsville territory too. This wasn't like this happened at the 50. I mean, they had an opportunity to go up by 2 possessions.
Yeah, that's throw the ball up the tongue guy and let it happen. Let's go to your National Guard consistent performer.
There's 2 of them.
You only get one.
Oh, come on. You're no fun, Dusty. All right, look.
Well, especially if you're going to play on both sides of the fence. I got to play on at least one side of it. So.
All right, I'll give you that. Look, I'll go with To'a on this one. I think the night that he had, and really for me, you look at his line throwing the football, 10 for 20, 136 yards, 1 touchdown. And, that's not going to turn any heads. But when he needed to make throws, he did. And he was on target with them. And I think that added enough variety to this Taylorsville offense. He ran 24 carries, 177 yards, 3 touchdowns, equated for 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, including a couple big 4th down conversions. I think To'a, for me, was as consistent as you could ask him to be, and his consistency elevated Taylorsville to the win.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, it's a win. It's who you got to go with, but because there's 2 of us, it means both guys get credit here. Joseph TiaTia, you mentioned, and so in this game, 33 carries, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns. In the first round of the playoffs, at home against Lone Peak, we mentioned that because remember next year Lone Peak's an absolute juggernaut. He goes 35 carries, 332 yards and 3 touchdowns in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, gets it in this game too. But I just want to throw that one in there for Joseph TiaTia, my National Guard, because it's a performer.
He ran for 2,200 yards in 2014. That's good for 10th all time in terms of most rushing yards in a season. Joseph TiaTia, what a year he had in 2014 for this Hunter Wolverine squad.
But the night belonged to To'a Maumau and the Taylorsville Warriors. Let's end on one final note. When we talk about this team, because it feels like we spend enough time talking about Hunter and what this team meant to Taylorsville, because I think it was a fun trivia question for those Taylorsville fans. Who was the quarterback before Dane Leitu'u? Because the next 4 years are all Dane Leitu'u's.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. We meet a lot of great people as we go out to games and we get to interact with each of the fans. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of Taylorsville pride in this valley, but they really haven't been able to have a lot of pride in their football program, especially in the mid to late 2000s, the early teens. And it was great to be able to see that 2013 and 2014 team come, because you talk about Taylorsville's baseball territory, right? And it is. But to be able to see some of their alumni come back, and we went and did games out there, and it was fun to be able to have that environment back in Taylorsville and to start to see this program turn the corner a little bit, start to win games, start to make the playoffs. It was fun to be able to see their alumni come back and take some pride in Taylorsville high school football. And, I know they've been to the playoffs, in I think 2016 or 17, and then obviously last year where everyone made it. That has still been a rare occurrence. Be able to go back to back like Taylorsville did in 13 and 14. It was awesome to see. I know they would have loved for that to continue on further. I thought this team was positioned to make a deeper run in the playoffs. It didn't happen, but it was a special 2 years for that community, for their alumni, to be able to see a football team go out, put together wins, and represent Taylorsville like their students, their alumni, their administration would hope that could be every year, right? And we got a chance to see that in 13 and 14. It was really fun to be able to go out there and experience that.
Well, we love doing these. Again, we're bringing these every week, getting ready for the high school football season that kicks off on August 13th. We'll have Deseret News Rewind live on the 14th. Football is right around the corner, folks. Our 30 for 30 will be coming out soon, our top 30 rankings. If there's games that you want us to do, we'll do more than one if we get the demand. We got a fun one coming up. I mean, just prefacing it, it is one of the best games in the state's history and what could have been. But if there's other ones, hit us up on Twitter at DNews Rewind, at Dane_Stewart, at Dusty Litster. And if we've got it in our archive, we have a lot of them. Folks, there was back in the day, we did 24 games a month. We got plenty of games. So hit us up and we would we'll see what we can do. But for Vince Francis and Dane Stewart, I'm Dusty Litster. Thanks for joining us watching Deseret News Rewind Classics, presented by Heidemann & Associates and brought to you by the Utah Army National Guard.